In the heart of rural land, there lived an old and weak grandmother, Mary, who was the sole caretaker of her sickly grandson, Tom. They lived a simple life, tending to their small farm and making do with what little they had. Despite their struggles, they were content with their quiet existence, finding joy in each other's company. One fateful night, Tom's condition worsened, and Mary knew she had to act fast. She scooped him up in her arms and ventured out into the darkness, hoping to find help. She stumbled along the rugged road, her heart racing with fear and desperation. As she walked, she prayed fervently to God, asking for a miracle. And then, to her amazement, something extraordinary happened. Mary felt a sudden surge of power coursing through her body, and she began to levitate off the ground. She looked down, and to her astonishment, she saw the road and the fields below her. Overwhelmed by the sudden rush of sensations, Mary closed her eyes and focused on her grandson. She soared higher and higher, the wind rushing past her face as she flew towards the nearest hospital. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Mary landed softly on the hospital roof, clutching Tom tightly in her arms. She burst through the door, and the doctors and nurses rushed to help the sickly child. As she watched over Tom's bedside, Mary realized that she now possessed incredible abilities. She could fly, lift heavy objects with ease, and move at lightning speed. With these powers, she could help others in need, and she was determined to do so. Over the following months, Mary became a superhero, using her powers to help those in need. She stopped robberies, rescued people from burning buildings, and even stopped a runaway train. As word of her exploits spread, people began to call her the Flying Granny. Mary didn't care much for the name, but she was glad that she could make a difference in the world. Years passed, and Mary continued to use her powers for good. She never forgot her humble beginnings, though, and she always remained humble and kind. She knew that her abilities were a gift from God, and she was determined to use them to help others as much as she could. Further, she always thanked God for choosing her to help others. But as Mary grew older, her powers began to weaken, and she couldn't move as quickly or as easily as she used to. She started to feel tired all the time, and her body grew weaker with each passing day. One day, as Mary lay in bed, Tom came to visit her. Tom had grown into a young man, and he was now a doctor, thanks in part to Mary's inspiration. "Granny, how are you feeling?" Tom asked, concern etched on his face. "I'm not feeling so well, dear," Mary replied, her voice weak. "My time is almost up." Tom's eyes filled with tears as he realized what Mary was saying. He knew that the Flying Granny's time was almost over and that soon, she would be gone. "Granny, I want to thank you for everything you've done," Tom said, his voice trembling. "You've been an inspiration to me and so many others. You've made the world a better place." Mary smiled weakly, her eyes filled with gratitude. "Thank you, dear. That means a lot to me." As the day wore on, Mary's condition worsened. She grew weaker and weaker, until finally, she took her last breath. Tom was there by her side, holding her hand and crying softly. The people of the rural land mourned Mary's passing, remembering her as a hero, a symbol of hope and kindness. But as they mourned, they also wondered what would become of the Flying Granny's powers. Some hoped that Tom would take up the mantle, but others weren't so sure. In the end, the Flying Granny's powers remained a mystery, a gift that had been given to Mary and died with her. But the people of the rural land didn't forget her legacy. They remembered her as a hero, and they knew that her spirit would live on in the kindness and compassion of those who remembered her.